Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and on the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, Trump brings peace to another part of the world, and a dead duck on a stick, a man with a machete, just another day in downtown Seattle with our unsheltered neighbors. But before we get to any of that, time for your daily dose of adrenaline.
You want me to stick this into my heart? Are you f***ing nuts?
I think some people need a refresher on the Constitution after the rulings today. I think some people have some trouble with reading comprehension. Now, I check that box that says, how much schooling have you completed? And I check some college, because I'm still 1.5 credits shy of graduating college. Yes, I know. But I can read pretty good. Maybe not speak pretty good, but I can read the 14th Amendment. Shall we read it together? All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and the state wherein which they reside. Okay, you're all with me on this? Everybody got me on this. You all following me? What part are you having trouble understanding? Subject to the jurisdiction thereof, which means if there is a jurisdiction where the law is you can't come across the border illegally, then, hey, Guess whose jurisdiction you're subject to. Yes, exactly. This isn't that complicated. The 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution was passed in 1866, ratified in 1868 in the aftermath of the Civil War. Its primary purpose was to secure civil rights and legal protections for formerly enslaved people and ensure their citizenship after the abolition of slavery. Now, let's give benefit of the doubt to a second here. What about the people that were sold into human trafficking? What about the people that were sold as slaves? You know what? You could have made a convincing argument based on that. You could have. And by the way, Democrats, you would have been able to paint Republicans as monsters. For modern-day slavery, you don't want to save them in the greatest country. You could have done that. That's not what you did. Instead, you went the whole, I don't even know what your argument was. It was garbage. It was complete garbage. Read the law, guys. If you actually knew why this thing was created and why it was formed, you would have had a more convincing argument. After slavery was abolished by the 13th Amendment in 1865, there was no clear constitutional definition of citizenship. Southern states were refusing to recognize freed slaves as citizens. The 14th Amendment declared that all persons born or naturalized in the United States are citizens of the U.S. and the state in which they reside, effectively overruling the 1857 Dred Scott versus Sanford decision, which had declared that black people could not become U.S. citizens. I forget which party it was that didn't want black people becoming citizens. Hang on. Which one was it that didn't want black people being freed or becoming citizens or voting or having equal rights? I'm having a hard time remembering. Oh, right. It was the Jackass Party. I'm sorry, I meant the Donkey Party. I mean the Democrats. It was that party. Just
hey, Grok, is that true? I don't know, Ari. Have you been seeing that on Twitter? Anytime you see like a movie clip or like, what? Hey, Grok, what movie is this? Is this true?
Oh, see, I've seen it differently. I've seen it on anything I post. There's always somebody who goes, is Ari Hoffman lying about this? I'm seeing that more and more, and I love when it goes, no, Ari Hoffman is telling the... I love when it says that, but by the way, Grok, my new best friend. I mean, I know we know each other, but we don't like know each other. So yeah, happy to have that conversation. The Due Process Clause restricted state governments from depriving people of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. The amendment gave Congress the authority to enforce its own provisions through the legislation. A key point during Reconstruction is Congress sought to control how the former Confederate states rejoined the Union because they didn't want to have another civil war. This is pretty easy, by the way. The Supreme Court today delivered a major victory for President Donald Trump's quest, as Fox News puts it, to block lower courts from issuing universal injunctions that had upended many of his administration's executive orders and actions. Yeah, perhaps maybe these judges, when did they decide that a federal judge somewhere gets to be more important, have more power than the United States of America? You want to make something for your jurisdiction? Fine. You don't get to do that for the rest of the country. And we've just kind of let that be the case. For what, the last 2 decades, maybe 3 decades? We've just federal judge says it. Okay, well, that's the story for the entire country. No, that's not the case. I did see Babylon Bee said something today to the effect of, federal judge says he gets to override the Supreme Court decision. That's really what we're talking about today. Justices ruled 6-3 to allow the lower courts to issue injunctions only in limited circumstances, though the ruling leaves open the question of how the ruling will apply to birthright citizenship order at the heart of the case. The court agreed this year to take up a trio of consolidated cases involving so-called universal injunctions handed down by federal district judges in Maryland, Massachusetts, and Washington state. Judges in those districts had blocked Trump's ban on birthright citizenship from taking force nationwide, which the Trump administration argued in their appeal to the Supreme Court was overly broad. The Supreme Court's arguments in May focused little on the merits of those universal injunctions, and on Friday, the court made clear that it is not ruling on whether or not the birthright citizenship orders are constitutional. Instead, it instructed the lower courts to move expeditiously to ensure that with respect to each plaintiff, the injunctions comport with this rule and otherwise comply with principles of equity. I love that they use the word equity against the left. They also stayed any enforcement of the orders from taking effect for 30 days. The applications do not raise, and thus we do not address, the question of whether the executive order violates the citizenship clause or nationality clause. Judge Amy Coney Barrett said, writing for the majority, the issue before us is one of remedy, whether under the Judiciary Act of 1789, federal courts have equitable authority to issue universal injunctions. A universal injunction can be justified only as an exercise of equitable authority, yet Congress has granted federal courts no such power. Stop. That's the important line there. If Congress wants to make a law giving federal judges more power, then make a law giving federal judges more power. If Congress wants to codify abortion, then make a law codifying abortion. We have a way to do things, guys, and it's through Congress, who makes the laws. And yet instead, we've kind of just resorted to executive order. Instead, we've let this happen with Obama. I got a pen and a phone. We let it happen with Trump. We let it happen with Biden. We let it happen with Trump again. If Congress wants something done, make a law about it, which, by the way, is frustrating me with this Congress. As John Adams says in 1776, and I have had this Congress. We've had this Congress for what, 160 days now? 170 days, something like that, the Trump administration. 1, democracy has not ended. But 2, what have you guys actually passed? Nothing. You guys could have passed things that address so much of this. We control, the Republicans control the House, the Senate, and the White House. If you guys wanted laws on a bunch of stuff, you could pass it right now, but you're not actually doing it. So what's the holdup here? President Trump thanked the Supreme Court for the decision today.
Thanks to this decision, we can now promptly file to proceed with numerous policies that have been wrongly enjoined on a nationwide basis. And some of the cases we're talking about would be ending birthright citizenship, which now comes to the fore. That was meant for the babies of slaves. It wasn't meant for people trying to scam the system and come into the country on a vacation. This was, in fact, it was the same date, the exact same date, the end of the Civil War. It was meant for the babies of slaves, and it's so clean and so obvious. But this lets us go there and finally win that case, because hundreds of thousands of people are pouring into our country under birthright citizenship, and it wasn't meant for that reason. It was meant for the babies of slaves. So thanks to this decision, we can now promptly file to proceed with these numerous policies and those that have been wrongly enjoined on a nationwide basis, including birthright citizenship, ending sanctuary city funding, suspending refugee resettlement, freezing unnecessary funding, stopping federal taxpayers from paying for transgender surgeries, and numerous other priorities of the American people.
That's the important part there. That's all the stuff you can do now. The Trump agenda, America First agenda, all that can be done now. So I have a question. Is Nick Brown smoking something? Because I'm reading the statement he put out, and I'm not sure we're reading the same thing here. He wrote, "This morning's order does not dispute the issue we won handily in trial court that President Trump's attempt to strip birthright citizenship is unlawful and wrong." And that's not what it said, dude. The justices also confirmed that courts may issue broad injunctions when needed to provide complete relief to the parties. That's not what it said either. In the case led by Washington State, the trial judge already ruled that nationwide relief is necessary to protect Washington and its co-plaintiffs from the harms of the executive order. Dude, are we completely misunderstanding this? Is there a communication breakdown, or is this you just trying to save face and go, "We won," like Iran's doing right now? Is that what's happening? Because you didn't win this one, dude. It's a very odd statement you give here. Here's the Attorney General of the United States.
Today marks 2,711 arrests on these terrorists and these gangs. Total arrest today with HSI investigations. And thank you, Stephen Miller. Thank you to Homeland Security. Thank you to everyone working hand in hand with the FBI on all of these transnational gangs. TDA has been a huge terror to our country, as well as MS-13, as well as Sinaloa cartels. No longer. No longer.
In fact, over the last few days, I've gotten multiple press releases from the Department of Justice of people from drug cartels who are sentenced who are Mexican citizens, who are not U.S. citizens. There were a few U.S. citizens thrown in there, but most of them were people from other countries who are dealing drugs on our streets. And the question you really have to ask people like Nick Brown is, one, what's the reading comprehension issue? But two, is why do you want these illegal immigrant criminals in our state? What benefit is there? You know, I think without the political partisanship, I think we could have a real conversation with level-headed people where we say, okay, we got a problem. We got people who came here illegally but want to be citizens of our country. They want to fix it. We want them to come out into the open. We want them paying taxes. We want to fix it. How do we fix it? But instead, the Democrats have taken the route of, we want everybody here regardless of what they did. And that's not in line with the American people. Pam Bondi continued discussing the order today.
Let me reiterate, of the 35 of the 40 nationwide injunctions filed against this president, against his executive authority as president of the United States, 35 of them came from Maryland, D.C., Massachusetts, California, Washington. I mean, that's crazy. These 5 districts.
Yes. Now, I will warn you guys one thing, as much as we're celebrating right now, just to play devil's advocate, because we are the most pro-devil show on the air. When there is eventually another socialist president, I'm sorry, I meant another Democrat president. When there is a socialist president, Republicans are not going to be able to use the federal courts to stop whatever that socialist is up to. Be careful what you wish for, guys. Just realize you have to remember this goes in the hands of your worst enemy. But you know what? I don't have a problem with it because at least now we're following the Constitution.
What would you say to Americans who fear that this is more and more concentration of power in the White House and the executive?
Well, this really brings back the Constitution. This is what it's all about. And this is really the opposite of that. I mean, the question is fine, but it's the opposite. The Constitution has been brought back.
Exactly right. People didn't vote for federal judges. People voted for a president. They voted for a Congress. If a Congress wants to make a law, they can make a law.
This is really also a decision based on common sense. It didn't work the other way. It was a disaster where somebody from a certain location in a very liberal state or a liberal judge or a liberal group of judges could tie up a whole country for years because their decision would sometimes take years to overturn. We've overturned many of the decisions, but it would take years to do it. And we have to act quickly when it comes to illegal immigration. We have murderers, killers, we have drug dealers, we have what they've allowed to come into our country should never be forgotten. It should never be forgotten what they've done to our country. And we have to be able to act very quickly, and we're going to do that. Thank you.
Exactly right. Now, there was a bonus in this ruling today, written by Amy Coney Barrett. And by the way, everybody on the right who hates Amy Coney Barrett because you didn't like a few of her decisions, this should make up for it right here. Apparently, all the justices think that Ketanji Brown Jackson is, let's just say, not the best justice. Shall we say that? They think that her legal understanding is limited and she doesn't fully grasp legal concepts. And in fact, she has nothing to base them on. I never saw them call out Sotomayor like this. I never saw them call out Kagan like this. Because look, let's be balanced for a second here. I don't like Kagan as a justice. But when she writes something, usually there's law behind it. It's not, I feel this way. That's not Sonia Sotomayor. She writes nonsense. But Ketanji Brown Jackson is also writing nonsense. Here's what Justice Coney Barrett wrote. We will not dwell on Justice Jackson's argument, which is at odds with more than 2 centuries worth of precedent, not to mention the Constitution itself. We observe only this. Justice Jackson decries an imperial executive while embracing an imperial judiciary. Do you understand that? She's saying, I don't like the president, so I want the judges to have all the power, even though it's not according to the Constitution. No one disputes that the executive has a duty to follow the law, but the judiciary does not have unbridled authority to enforce this obligation. In fact, sometimes the law prohibits the judiciary from doing so, and she cites some examples. So, but to see Jackson's dissenting point, if courts do not have the authority to require the executive to adhere to law universally, compliance with the law times becomes a matter of executive prerogative. Observing the limits on judicial authority, including, as relevant here, the boundaries of the Judiciary Act of 1789, is required by a judge's oath to follow the law. Justice Jackson skips over that part because analyzing the governing statute involves boring, quote-unquote, legalese. She seeks to answer, quote, a far more basic question of enormous practical significance. May a federal court in the United States of America order the executive to follow the law? In other words, it is unnecessary to consider whether Congress has constrained the judiciary. What matters is how the judiciary may constrain the executive. Justice Jackson would do well to heed her own admonition. And then she quotes her, everyone from the president on down is bound by the law. That goes for judges too. Do you realize how they just dunked on Ketanji Brown Jackson? By saying, you selectively edited the parts you quoted in your dissenting opinion because you didn't like what they said and because you don't like the president. So you're not actually basing any of this on law. You're basing it on how you feel, and that is such a microcosm of what this entire problem is, that judges across the U.S. are ruling how they feel, not based in law. And to be fair, Republican justices have done it as well. Federal judges have done it as well when the Democrats are in power. If you want to say nobody is above the law, then what's the law? Don't start censoring it for your own purposes. But this is exactly what the problem was. How many times have I said on the show, Mike? Mike knows this. How many times have I said on the show? You have to write a legal opinion that says, here's the law, here's what we're following, here's what you did or didn't do. Unfortunately, we have so many of these federal judges who go, I don't like it. You know, we got worse than that. Washington State Supreme Court. I don't like your $30 car tabs. I don't like your ban on making sure you don't ban natural gas. I don't like parents having rights over their children. They didn't base any of that in law. They wrote, this is how we feel, and then cited a few things to back them up, but it was not well written. This is the law, guys, and a federal judge does not get to override the president or the Supreme Court or the Congress. That's not how this is set up to work. I'm kind of curious what you think today, because to me, this seems like a no-brainer. And actually, the birthright citizenship question, which is going to be answered and is going to be dealt with, is not the big win here today. The big win here today is that federal judges don't get to make law for the entire U.S. because they don't like something. The system we have is the system we have. You don't get to upend it because you don't like how it works. Let me know what you think about today's rulings. 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. In fact, we're going to cover all the Supreme Court rulings today. in different parts of the show, we will get into what happened with the opt-out of radical education. We will get into all their other decisions. But, my friends, when we come back, apparently there was a dead duck on a stick being carried around by one of our unsheltered neighbors and another one waving a machete. Just another day in downtown Seattle. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Well, as Nick Brown and Bob Ferguson continue to have their meltdowns over the Supreme Court ruling, some of you have some great texts here over on the Warrior Injury Law text line. This one here from the 206. I expect Jackson to be replaced by the Trump administration. Yeah, guys, that's not going to happen unless she steps down. But this person also added Jackson didn't follow the law. Exactly. Exactly right. The Supreme Court is not a political branch. It's all about the law. By the way, For all the people on the left who keep yelling and screaming about this Supreme Court, there have been, the majority of their decisions have actually been unanimous decisions. I looked up those stats the other day. The majority are unanimous decisions, or sometimes you even get the conservative, quote-unquote, justices siding with the liberal justices. I think this is actually one of the most balanced courts we've seen in a while. Why? Because if you claim you follow the law all the time, as the conservatives do, sometimes they're going to end up siding with the other side because the law is bipartisan. This one here from John in Lakewood. I'm happy with limits put on federal district court judges. Does this affect how Washington state district judges affect our laws statewide? Well, sort of, John. That's a complicated question there, but basically, they don't get to make the laws for the entire country. They do get to make the laws for the jurisdictions here in Washington. Or I shouldn't say make the laws. I should say rule on the laws. Jim from Port Orchard. Illegal aliens are desired by the left to increase census numbers for congressional representation. Of course, that's what it is. Plus, if you have an entire class that's indebted to you for government services, they're going to vote for the party that gives them more government services. Exactly right. Paul in North Seattle says, we may disagree with Justice Kagan about everything, but she is a brilliant jurist. Scalia recognized this. And he mentioned it in 2009 because he knew Obama was going to name a liberal. Yes, I will say this. Kagan, I don't like a lot of her opinions, but I can't poke holes in her opinions the way I do with Sotomayor, the way everybody does with Jackson. Jackson was never qualified for this role. Joe Biden said very, very clearly why he named her to the court, and that's unfortunate. Because he had an opportunity to put somebody like Kagan on the court, who people could have said, look, Ruth Bader Ginsburg for a second here. Not a good justice. Sorry, you can yell at me all you want. Brilliant lawyer, brilliant judge. Not a good justice. Sorry, that's just the case, right? You could take a brilliant person, and then they turn out to be a nothing burger, unfortunately. That's Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I know she's this big hero of the left, and if you want to say she's a hero of the left because of her legal career, I would agree with you. I saw that movie. It was pretty interesting. But not as a justice. None of her cases are cited as, oh, these are the most amazing cases ever written. They're just not. Focusing back on the things happening here in Seattle. All right, this one's from the police scanner. 5500 Sandpoint Way. A male is walking around with a dead duck on a stick. Not sure if the male killed the duck or is attacking ducks. It sounds like one of our unsheltered neighbors. I'm sorry, we can't say unsheltered neighbors anymore. We've been told that's insensitive. Our unhoused neighbors? Is that what it is? Yes, that's what it sounds like to me. Huh. Sounds like another day in Seattle. Did you see the video? I was telling Mike about this earlier. You see the video with the guy stealing a swan the other day? That wasn't here. That was somewhere else. They're eating the dogs. They're eating the cats. Yeah, crazy stuff happening. And then there's this one. A man dancing in Lake City's Albert Davis Park, according to Como News, was attacked with a machete near a homeless encampment Tuesday night. At 8:28 p.m., police were called to a report of an assault near the 12500 block between 27th Avenue Northeast and 28th Avenue Northeast. They found a 42-year-old man with scratches and cuts on his left hand. He was treated at the scene and then taken to a hospital. Police learned the victim had been playing music and dancing when a man approached him and hit him in the back. The man then cut the victim's hand with a machete-style weapon. Exactly. The machete-wielding man then ran southwest from the park before officers arrived, searched, and didn't find the man. Anybody who sees a crazy lunatic with a machete is asked to call the Seattle police. Is asked to call the Seattle Police Department. Meanwhile, I don't know what's going on in this city, guys. Isn't the mayor always telling us it's so much safer? Isn't the police chief saying, look at the good work we're doing? Como News, a woman stabbed a man during an incident in Seattle's First Hill on Tuesday night. At 9:50 p.m., someone called 911 to report a stabbing on Terry Avenue. Officers arrived, found a man who had been stabbed in the torso. They gave him medical aid until Seattle Fire Department medics arrived and took him to Harborview Medical Center. Apparently, the victim was standing outside a gas station when a man and woman approached him while arguing. The man went to the gas station. When he came back out, he saw the woman stab the victim in the chest, and she fled shortly thereafter. Police found the woman near the 700 block of Cherry Street a short time later and took her into custody. So, guys, you know that all this stuff has to do with our unsheltered neighbors, right? And you realize that the more of them you leave around the city and keep them on the places where people go, you're going to have more issues like this. Do you not recall just a few years ago, a tourist was coming out of one of the hotels, and that's supposed to be one of the areas you guys keep nice, and came out of one of the hotels and was stabbed? Do you not remember somebody was killed on the light rail by one of our unsheltered neighbors who stabbed him, who was visiting from out of town? How many more tragedies do we need until you realize that keeping people who have mental health issues, drug issues, and criminal histories on the streets is a bad move? How many more? What's it going to take? God forbid somebody going after the mayor, a city council member? Because, you know, we've had them go after politicians before. This is nothing new. Crazy stuff. When we come back, my friends, Trump brings peace to another part of the world. You think he's going to get a Nobel Peace Prize? In fact, he answers the question if the media will ever give him credit for any of this. We have that awesome audio for you when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. So you may not have heard with all the Supreme Court decisions today, but the Trump administration brokered a peace deal between the Congo, Rwanda, and the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Now, most people don't pay attention to this part of the world, but this is another huge peace deal, a ceasefire deal, a stop in the violence deal, another one. So meanwhile, you've had India and Pakistan.
Another one.
Exactly. You've had Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of the Congo, who've been at war with each other forever. You have Israel and Iran. You think that President Trump is ever going to get the recognition for this at all? In fact, one reporter asked him that today.
Mr. President, Kara Castronova from Lindell TV. Now that your administration, and congratulations, has secured peace in Africa to a bloody, horrific war that's gone on for decades and no other president could do it, do you think the mainstream media will finally...
I'm telling you. No other, but you're right. No other president could do it. They tried, and they didn't even try, I don't think. I actually don't think they tried. Do you think Biden tried? He didn't know he was alive.
Do you think the mainstream media will finally give you credit where credit is due?
No, the media will never give me credit, but the people give me credit. That's why I'm here. The people didn't give me. That's why we're here in a landslide. We got all 7 states. We won the popular vote. So the media won't give me credit, but the people give me credit. That's more important to me.
You know, for those of you who missed the story earlier this week, last Saturday, when we're all offline for the Sabbath in my synagogue, and we found out about the bombing in Iran, we were euphoric. That the U.S. had taken out the Iranian nuclear facilities, we were euphoric. So when he says the people give him credit, absolutely. Absolutely. You know the memes going around today? I've been showing them to Mike because I'm giggling about them. I saw one where, so for Sabbath, we have the challah bread, right? And I see people sending out ones in the shape of B-2 bombers. I don't know if they're photoshopped or not, but there's people making them. And then my favorite one is Bibi and Trump, and AI is getting too scary because this looks legit. This looks like they're actually in a kitchen making the challah of the B-2 bombers, and there's a B-2 bomber in the background out the window behind them, as if Donald Trump flew over to Israel or vice versa with the B-2 bomber. So even if President Trump doesn't get the credit, just know, Mr. President, the people do give you the credit. And you know what? We don't do it for awards. I think I mentioned this once before. There was this organization that I used to work with kids, and they used to give out awards all the time. All the time. I never got an award. Big deal. I don't care. One time, they didn't like me, so they actually had an award for me. I had won a certain category, and they wouldn't give it to me, and somebody found it laying around the national office and gave it to me as a present in a box later. Like, they specifically didn't want to give it to me. Fine, I don't care. When I left the organization without any fanfare, without any accolades whatsoever, you know, I saw one of those flyers that said this space intentionally left blank, which I think was in a newspaper or something. I cut it out and I hung that up on the wall. And my kids one time said, "Dad, what's that?" And I said, that is a reminder that we don't do what we do for awards. We do what we do because it's the right thing to do. Now, Mike is kind of laughing because he knows anytime we do win an award, I'm like, look what we won. But at the same time, we don't do it for the awards. There are tons of awards we could enter around here. There really are. But you know what? We don't do it for the awards. We do it for you. We do it because it's the right thing and because we want to push the things that we know can make America great again, like the stuff in the Trump agenda.
This is a tremendous breakthrough. In a few short months, we've now achieved peace between India and Pakistan, Israel and Iran, and the DRC and Rwanda, and a couple of others also. Serbia, you know, they were getting ready to go to war with a group I won't even mention because it didn't happen. We were able to stop it, but I have a friend in Serbia, and they said we're going to go to war again. And I won't mention that it's Kosovo, but it's Kosovo. But they were going to have a big-time war, and we stopped it. We stopped it because of trade. They want to trade with the United States. I said, we don't trade with people that go to war. And we said that also with, if you take a look at Pakistan and India, it was great. They have two great leaders, and they were able to stop. They were in the midst of a big fight, I guess everybody saw, and it was going to get very bad. And they are nuclear nations, very powerful nuclear nations. And
He's 100% right. You think Biden could have stopped this? You think Kamala Harris could have stopped this? It all started on their watch. Here's something else for you. Let's even go back to our guy. So Barack Obama, we know, seeded a lot of this. That's his problem. But let's go back to George Bush. Look, you want to do neocon thing, but it was a different way of thinking. It was the way of thinking of the last 50 years in the Middle East that George Bush was plagued by. Donald Trump And the people in his administration go, why do a whole war to take out Iran's nuclear facilities when we could just take out Iran's nuclear facilities? If Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction, why not just take out the warehouses of mass destruction? And if you want, take out Saddam Hussein. Why do you need to invade the whole country to do that? And you know what's amazing? You had asked me back then, should we go to war with Iraq? I remember this. I was a little younger. But I remember I would say, yeah, he's a terrorist. But that's because what was all that we knew? All that we knew was, yes, go in and invade. That's what America does. Send in G.I. Joe and his lasers. Just do that. There's a different way of thinking. Why do we build all these smart weapons? So you don't have to do that anymore. Just take out the weapons. And like I said, Israel did that in 1980 against the Osirak reactor, against Saddam Hussein, and denied him the nuclear bomb. By the way, the shining star in all this that is not getting enough credit is Marco Rubio. Marco Rubio behind the scenes has been incredible. He's the guy behind a lot of these deals. Here's what he said today.
Mr. President, first of all, thank you. When I first came on this job a few months ago, you made it very clear that the priority of this administration under your leadership was going to be the pursuit of peace. And from day one, whether it's been in Ukraine and Russia, whether it's been Pakistan, India, whether it's been Iran and Israel, and in the continent of Africa, your priority's been on peace. And today we see this come to fruition. It's sad. Wars get a lot more attention than peace. But peace is harder than war. A lot harder. And I want to congratulate both of the leaders here and their respective presidents for choosing the harder path, which is often peace, than the easier path, which sometimes is war, as costly and as bloody as it may be. And I echo the Vice President's statements, and that is that Americans should be very proud that the number one voice for peace in the world today is our president, your president. And so thank you, President Trump. And I want to, again, recognize Dr. Boulos and the work he's put into this from day one. He's really put a lot of time and effort. And as our friends from the respective countries can share with us.
Now, he's a superstar. He's a rock star. He's also a humble guy because he's giving all the credit to President Trump, even though President Trump tasked him with the deal. It was President Trump's leadership that goes, this is what I want you to do. Marco's the guy on the ground who got it done. And I got to say something, guys. Who would you rather have as the nominee in 2028? Vance, Rubio? Rubio at the top of the ticket? I got questions. Like, I want to know what you guys think. Let us know. I've loved Marco Rubio ever since he came on the scene. In fact, I supported him the first time around. He didn't do very well. Little Marco with his little didn't do very well the first time. But, I mean, I've always liked Marco Rubio. What do you think? Marco or Vance at the top of that ticket? 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. And by the way, when you talk about peace through strength, trust but verify. Iran. So, President Trump said to Iran, give us all your uranium or else we're coming in again. And how did Iran respond? Iran responded by saying, we beat Israel. We won. We defeated the great Satan and the little Satan. We defeated America and we defeated Israel. So you know what President Trump did today? Talk about peace through strength. Talk about trust but verify. He said he would remove all the sanctions on Iran if they started working towards peace. And by the way, that is what he did in Syria, and Syria might be about to join the Abraham Accords. But Iran said, nope, we beat Israel. And so Donald Trump goes, screw it. You're the same lunatics that we bombed a few months ago, and you haven't learned your lesson. So you know what? We are not removing those sanctions. So for all of you who are against regime change, tell me what your solution is to this little problem. 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Jim from Port Orchard on the Warrior Injury Law text line says an additional issue to resolve, census counting of illegal aliens. Only bona fide citizens should be counted in the census. Exactly, because they're using them for congressional seats. I like the people making fun of Ketanji Brown Jackson because she doesn't know what a woman is. We all remember that one, right? There's a few texts like that. Lots more to discuss as the show continues. Speaking of not knowing what a woman is, Supreme Court of the United States gives a huge victory to Maryland parents. And the Museum of Pop Culture here in Seattle has a major boo-boo. We'll tell you what's going on when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. More big rulings for the Supreme Court today. They ruled today 6-3 in favor of Maryland parents who brought forth a case against the Montgomery County Board of Education members over LGBTQ books being read in class to their children. Quote, parents challenging the board's introduction of LGBTQ plus minus inclusive, oh, that's a dash, storybooks, along with its decision to withhold opt-outs, are entitled to preliminary injunction. Today we hold that parents have shown that they are entitled to preliminary injunction. A government burdens the religious exercise of parents when it requires them to submit their children to instruction that poses a very real threat to undermining the religious beliefs and practices that the parents wish to instill, Justice Samuel Alito wrote for the court. The board's introduction of the LGBTQ plus inclusive storybooks, along with its decision to withhold opt-outs, places an unconstitutional burden on the parents' rights to free exercise of their religion. Something important here. Do you know how many parents opted out of this? 80%. 80%. So the school says, whoa, we can't have you all opting out of it. We're going to court, or we're making rules about this. Instead, you should have said, if 80% of the parents think we're doing something wrong, maybe we're doing something wrong here. And here's something else. The stuff is woven into the entire curriculum. I don't know about Maryland, but I know here in Washington, I know in Seattle, I know in plenty of the districts around here, it's woven in. Well, guess what, my friends? Now you don't have to put up with that anymore. The Supreme Court is on your side. And if you want to opt out, you opt out. Of course, the best way of opting out is not going to the public schools in the first place. Now, I'm going to give you a little story here, and it's going to be a little Bud Light bigotry, a little people getting mad about it, and you're not going to like my take on it, but I'm warning you in advance. So the Museum of Pop Culture is having their summer camps. Okay, rockin' and rolling, sci-fi steam voyagers. This all sounds like stuff the Museum of Pop Culture should do, right? Sure. Drag Camp 1.0, The Art of Drag, and Drag Camp 2.0, The Art of Performance. Yes, this stuff teaches you how to be a drag queen, brings in drag queens to teach all the children. Now, here's the thing, guys. You know why we don't get mad about this? I'm going to tell you why. Because it's optional. This is a camp you have to sign up for. Now, you want to be mad at those parents for signing up their kids and saying you should be able to call CPS on them? I think you got a good case to be made. But this isn't mandatory. You don't have to go to the Museum of Pop Culture for drag camp. You know what you can do instead? Say, I'm not going to that museum anyway because ever since they dumped all the good sci-fi stuff and Paul Allen died and they took all the Star Trek stuff out, I don't want to go to your lousy museum anyway, and it's overpriced. That's how you show you disagree with the Mopop on what they're doing. And if you cancel your membership, you say, I specifically don't like that you're doing these programs to kids, which have nothing whatsoever to do with sci-fi or rock and roll or any of the other things in your museum. We don't get mad about it because it's not being forced on the kids. What's our rule around here? Our rule around here is if tax money is being spent on it, or if you're forcing kids to do it against their will in the schools. That's when we get mad about it. Nobody's being forced to do this. Do I like that's happening? Absolutely not. Am I going to go to the Mopop? Absolutely not. I've kind of had it with the Mopop long before this because it's not worth the price. It's just not. But you know what? They shouldn't be doing this stuff. But it's optional. Parents get the choice if they want to send their kids to this stupidity. So what's our line for the outrage here, guys? What's our moral line for it? My line is always, is tax dollars being used? Are they forcing it on the kids in the public schools? That's always my line for it. So that's why, as upset as I want to be about this, I don't get to go full-on rage crazy about it. We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line, take a call from George in Kenmore. George, what's going on?
Hey, I was going to answer your ticket question. Vance is a one-hit wonder. You know, he was a grunt Marine. He was a public affairs guy, whatever. He's a one-hit wonder. But the real ticket should be Rubio and DeSantis.
I think that would be fascinating. And here's the thing I wonder also. Is DeSantis out of gas? And let me tell you why. He's going to be out of the headlines for 2 years. He's done being governor 2 years from now, I think, which means in 2 years he's out, which means he has a long time to catch up on that kind of stuff because he just got reelected recently. He got reelected. No, he's out in 1.5 years. 1.5 years he's done. He's term limited.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. Is he going to be out of the spotlight too long, and are people going to forget about it? And here's the other thing he's got working against him, which worked against him this time, is that COVID's long over and nobody wants to talk about it anymore, and that's his big claim to fame. So he's done amazing other
He
things.
did run before,
100%.
He has a bigger base.
100%. I think that's a great ticket. I really, really do. I like J.D. Vance. I'm not so big on J.D. Vance's foreign policy, but I like J.D. Vance. But I really like that. The Rubio DeSantis ticket, I like that a lot.
Or, hey, how about Rubio and Pam Bondi, man? That'd be the awesome ticket.
I don't know why Pam Bondi's getting all this hate from the right. Oh, she always goes on Fox News. She's getting the job done. And I don't know anybody in that administration who's not on Fox News constantly. They all are. Every single person from that administration. George, great call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757.
Half of the cabinet is from Fox News.
There's
Come
that
on,
also.
what are we talking about?
Right, exactly. Like when you had Pete Hegseth calling out a fellow Fox News anchor. I'm like, oh no, mom and dad are fighting. Mom or dad are fighting. Can't do it. We go back to the Warrior Injury Law studio line. Take a call from Leonard in Shoreline. Leonard, what's up, man?
Hey, nothing much. Hey, I like your story about the dead duck situation that came out over the scanner.
You like that? That's horrifying to me. I mean, do you find duck tasty in that situation?
But
Yeah.
here's the deal.
Yes.
But here's the deal. If you would have heard about this next year, the police scanner would be encrypted, and you wouldn't know a dang thing.
Oh, that's true. I forget. They're going to be encrypting the police scanner. I've got some issues with this, and I think if it's a security concern for the officers, I think there's ways of dealing with that, my friends. But don't forget, one of the things that led to this was the fact that police were using tactics to deceive the Antifa rioters, and the Antifa rioters got mad and sued about it, which is beyond ridiculous. Oh, you circumvented our plans to riot and attack you. Unbelievable. Leonard, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, my friends, your chance to take the trip or keep the cash. Plus, it looks like Washington State's going to start dealing drugs for free to addicts. Brilliant. Can they give me some free whiskey? We'll tell you about that when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless. Streaming live at KVI.com and on the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, a teacher is fired for teaching an American classic right here in our area. And young Zach will put a smile on your face with Fake News Friday at 4:45. But before we get to any of that, my friends, it's been a long week. You've worked hard, you've played hard, and you might need a getaway. Like the people on that cruise ship out there who are leaving right now. Look at them go. Look at that thing move. Look at that sucker. I love watching that every single day. You need some financial relief? We've got you covered with KVI's Take the Trip or Keep the Cash.
I can proudly proclaim that the golden age of America is upon us.
Indeed it is, thanks to our friends who sponsor this at Budget Tank Removals. This week you can get away to Key West, Florida with dinner in Margaritaville, sunsets at Mallory Square, and no car needed, or take the $3,000 in cold, hard cash. All you have to do is text the keyword I give you and just the keyword I give you. Not your name, not your phone number, not your address, not Ari, you are so good looking, but you need to lose a few pounds. None of that! You just text the keyword and only the keyword to the number that I give you. We'll get you in the daily drawing to get a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card, and you could win a trip or keep the cash with KVI. All you have to do is enter the keyword DOC. That's D-O-C-K, as in that cruise ship out there is leaving the dock right now as we speak. Text the keyword DOC, D-O-C-K, to 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Not like Doc in Back to the Future, not like short for Doctor, down by the dock at the bay, right? That's what we're talking about here. So text the keyword DOC to 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. You have until 5 o'clock to enter. Your next chance at winning comes Monday at 8. What? Is that Monday at 8 a.m.? Tomorrow at 8 a.m.
Monday.
It says tomorrow. Monday at 8 a.m. during the morning ride with Young Zach and Phil. Check out danielsbroiler.com to reserve a table, place your takeout delivery order, and more. Reminder, do not call us with the word. If you call us with the word, it does not count. You will just give us a word, and we'll be very confused like we were yesterday when somebody did that. Okay, now that the cruise ship is leaving the dock, shall we go on to some other news locally?
Well, before we do that, a little bit of music legislation. I have discovered that there are two songs about a dock. D-O-C-K.
Yeah, what is that?
Well, this is Down by the Docks from Thomas and Friends. It's Thomas the Tank Engine.
I knew it sounded familiar.
Because it's the only other song that has anything to do with the dock. And this one doesn't even work because it's docks plural and the word is dock, D-O-C-K, singular.
My kids love Thomas, and I always thought that Sir Topham Hatt should be indicted.
Sure.
Sir Topham Hatt should be in jail. The amount of disasters that happen on that island, how has nobody been killed yet? Trains going off on their own, flipping each other over. How are they still alive? Those trains should be dead. Instead, they just get a sad face. How? Sir Topham Hatt, you know what? Wait a second. Mike, we're going to make this our mission.
It's a real Bruce Harrell situation.
Sir Topham Hatt is coming to Snoqualmie every year. That train, that Thomas train, comes to Snoqualmie. You get to go for a ride, and I know Sir Topham Hatt is always with them. Mike, we need some people to go out there and arrest Sir Topham Hatt for gross negligence. It's amazing that the island of Sodor has not voted him off the island or put him in jail on the island or Napoleoned him on Elba or whatever it is, because that man is a danger to all of us and our children. You ever see how kids play with Thomas the Train? So, okay, go around the track, choo-choo, but then they start knocking them over because they saw it in the stupid show. All right, Sir Topham Hatt, he's a criminal. He is a criminal. And you know what? We're going to have to make wanted posters. Sir Topham Hatt, wanted by the Ari Hoffman Show for gross negligence. Maybe it's insurance fraud. I wonder if it's that. I wonder if Sir Topham Hatt, I wonder if the islands of Sodor is losing so much money that what he has to do is have all these accidents. Man, I would hate to be the insurance carrier for the island of Sodor, giving all the things that go wrong over there. You know who else I would hate to be the insurance carrier for? This truck here, a semi truck here in Washington, carrying 10,000 bottles of Woodinville whiskey rolled over on eastbound I-90 at milepost 45. No, not the Woodinville whiskey. What a waste. It flipped over on the freeway. Oh. Now, according to the Washington State Patrol, this is a direct quote, most survived. Now, by that, they don't mean the driver. They mean the whiskey. The most survived mean the bottles of whiskey. The driver's okay, too, by the way. BT Dubs, the driver survived, too. I know what you're all really worried about is the driver, not the whiskey. Holy cow. What kind of alcohol would you be freaking out about if it spilled over? I had a friend of ours one time came over to the house, and I said, she asked for a drink, because everybody knows we got the drinks at our house. And I said, she asked for something with vodka. I said, we're out of vodka. And she goes, that would be a tragedy in my house. Our house, we don't drink that much vodka. We're more of my wife's more of a rum aficionado, and I'm more like the scotches. So, the whiskey spilling over, not good, but not the end of the world. Meanwhile, speaking of things that might be smuggled in a truck, not that the whiskey was, a Washington man was sentenced to 5 years in federal prison Thursday for his role in a major international drug smuggling operation with ties to Mexico and Colombia. Curtis McDaniel, wait, he doesn't sound like an illegal immigrant, was sentenced to U.S. District Court in Seattle after being arrested just over a year ago at a motel in Tequila during a sweeping operation involving Drug Enforcement Administration, Seattle Police Department, and IRS criminal investigation. Wait a minute. If IRS was involved and the DEA was involved and the Seattle Police Department was involved, where's the Border Patrol guys? Oh, we'll get there. We'll get there. McDaniel was one of 4 people arrested on June 5th as part of a large-scale investigation into a drug trafficking conspiracy that funneled narcotics into the Pacific Northwest. Federal authorities say the group had direct connections to suppliers in Mexico and Colombia. Here we go. Here we go. All right, so there was one American, Ramon Duarte Garcia, a Mexican national living in Kent, Washington, was arrested after law enforcement caught him driving into the region with 12 pounds of meth, a stolen firearm, and $10,000 in suspected drug proceeds. Garcia was sentenced in May to 10 years in prison. Another defendant, Humberto Lopez Rodriguez, also a Mexican citizen and former Renton resident. Okay, you're not a Renton resident, Department of Justice. You just happen to be there. Is scheduled for sentencing on July 30th. The investigation uncovered a staggering amount of narcotics and firearms. Authorities seized 84,000 fentanyl pills, over a kilogram of fentanyl powder, 32 kilograms of cocaine, 15 kilograms of methamphetamine, nearly 3 kilograms of heroin, $71,000 in suspected drug proceeds, and 9 firearms, including an AK-47. Now, mind you, if I was their defense attorneys, you know what I would be saying? My clients didn't do anything wrong because Washington State wants to start giving out drugs free of charge to addicts. So if Washington State wants to give these things out, why did they get arrested? They didn't do anything wrong. This is all legal, right? Oh, you think I'm kidding? I'm not. According to the Center Square, from our friend Carlene Johnson, as part of the solution to address the ongoing opioid epidemic, a Washington Healthcare Authority work group has released recommendations that include turning the state into a drug supplier of sorts as part of a plan to provide safer drugs to addicts. Okay, guys, you know that at Schick Shadle and some of those other alcohol recovery places, you know what they do? They dry you out. They make it so that you vomit if you have alcohol. They make it so the idea of alcohol is so repulsive to you, you don't want to go near it. Washington's approach? Let's give you more drugs. There is no such thing as safe drugs in this regard. Oh, yeah, we've got safe methamphetamine for you. We've got safe, you know what that means? We tested the methamphetamine and it doesn't have fentanyl in it. Well, what'd you test the fentanyl for then? Oh, we'll give you Narcan then instead. I knew this was coming. I knew it was coming. I knew it was coming. I knew it was coming because we're following Canada's disastrous example. So years ago, actually, I don't even know if you can find the video anymore because my YouTube page was taken down, Mike. I can't even send people to the documentary we made. I have to see if I have the original file somewhere and can upload it somewhere else. Years ago, we made a documentary called Injected. I went with an undercover video crew up to Vancouver. And what we did was we took hidden audio of their quote-unquote safe injection sites. There's nothing safe about them. Let me give you the tour of the place from my perspective. You walk in, and there's a reception desk, and there's no literature about getting clean or treatment or AA or anything like that. Instead, there was just a reception desk. Off to your right was a dark room with a movie playing on a projector screen on the wall. And in this room, which is like, I don't know, a social hall type thing of a church or a frat house, or more like a frat house, this run-down, drapes covering the blinds, but light still kind of coming through like in a horror movie, are people in various stages of being high, whether they're bent over in half, whether they're sitting in a chair, whether they're spasming on the floor. There's about 20 individuals, 20 poor souls, after what the injection site did to them. We weren't allowed back into the rooms, but we told them we were there because we want to open these sites in Seattle. And they told us everything. So we asked the questions, for example. We said, do people die of overdoses because of your facility? Because the big claim is that they don't. So we want to do the same thing. And they said, well, they actually do. But what happens is because the EMTs come and take them and they die at the hospital, we don't mark that as a death here. So it's like the Disneyland motto. Nobody dies at Disneyland. Nobody dies at injection sites. They told me that they sometimes have to hit people with Narcan 8 or 9 times a day. Narcan is meant to save your life and then get you to the hospital for treatment, but they send the people back to the tents. They gave us training to inject Narcan. They pull out a little disc thing that has a thing that's like putty, but it's meant to be flesh. And within 15 minutes, I was certified to give out Narcan. Basically, it's find the fleshiest part of the body and inject this into a person. And then you're golden. I got the Narcan training, and then they handed me some free Narcan and some crack pipes. And then they took me to a back room where they keep all their supplies, and there's a safe. And I said, what's in the safe? And they said, that's where we have the narcotics. And I said, you mean the drugs? I thought you don't give them out here. And they go, well, if somebody comes in with stuff that doesn't test clean, we give them from the clean supply. I said, so you're giving out the drugs in this place? Yes, of course. Otherwise, they might use their own supply. We also found out that they don't do a straight-for-straight needle exchange. They just give out boxes of needles. We went to a park nearby, and in the park nearby, covered with homeless tents. Covered, absolutely covered. And we started interviewing people. They go there afterwards because they're also homeless. So what happens is the dealers go there and set up afterwards. When you come out of these injection sites, they just sell you the drugs so you can go in and use them in the injection sites. You come out, the whole neighborhood has been destroyed. All the stores are closed. All the houses of the people who can't sell their house because who would want to move into that neighborhood have so many locks. You remember Lois and Clark, the TV show? So Lois and Clark, you remember Lois's apartment had like 20 locks on the door because Metropolis was so crime infested? That's what all these houses look like. It reminded me of Lois's door in Lois and Clark. That's what it did to this neighborhood. And I remember saying, you know what? This is the kind of stuff they want to bring to Seattle. And then when I heard that a lot of organizations like the People's Harm Reduction Alliance were running these things off the books, then all of a sudden what happened? They started pushing for them to be on the books here in Seattle. The Navigation Center, which is now thankfully closed in downtown Seattle, they were pushing for that kind of stuff here. And then I heard a story out of BC. I heard, because the injection sites aren't really working because, they weren't admitting they were giving out the drugs to the public. So what happened was they said, we're going to start giving out the drugs. Then do you remember what they started doing? They set up vending machines in British Columbia to give out the drugs. That's right. Vending machines for the drugs. So now, if they're serious about doing this here in Washington, what do you think is going to come next? Now they're giving out the drugs. You know what comes after this? Having vending machines for the drugs. Guaranteed. And you want to know something crazy? Just like the People's Harm Reduction Alliance was admitting in their YouTube videos that they were doing these injection sites without them being legal. Just like they were admitting that at the time. If they're considering doing this already through different government programs, that means they're doing it already in organizations that are getting money from the government. That means they're doing it already because the government's always last to catch up with this kind of stuff, which means it's already happening. According to the Center Square, the Substance Use Recovery Services Advisory Committee, or SURSAC, was created via legislation in 2021 to provide suggestions to lawmakers around substance use policy and treatment options. And this is what you came up with? This is what you came up with. Unbelievable. The fact that you guys said, instead of getting people off the drugs. Instead, what you guys decided is you're going to give them more drugs. That's what you guys are thinking is the best way to go. So you guys are going with the Mandarin's approach in Iron Man 3?
They approached me about the role, and they knew about the drugs.
What did they say? They'd get you off them?
Said they'd give me more. They gave me things. They gave me this palace. They gave me plastic surgery. They gave me things.
They gave them everything. Wow, we're really doing the Iron Man 3 now. That's the plan. That's the plan of the Mandarin. That's what you guys are doing. SURSAC developed a set of proposals in a substance use and recovery services plan, which was released in January 2023 and outlined strategies to reduce overdoses and improve access to outreach, treatment, and recovery support of people with substance use disorder. So where's the treatment? Where's the recovery? Instead, you're just giving them drugs? Hey, Mike, I know we both had some alcoholic friends. When you want to sober up your buddy or you want to do an intervention or something like that, do you guys go to the nearest bar? No. You know how that awkward conversation we've all had before. Hey, where do we want to go tonight? Oh, let's go to the bar. Oh, but Bob's coming with us. Oh, well, we can't go to the bar then. Okay. Mini golf, anybody? What does Bob like to do? What can we do with Bob? Because we can't take Bob to the bar. We've all done that before, right? But here, instead, their approach is, let's give them more drugs. Are you out of your flipping minds? By the way, this may be yet another reason why Bob Ferguson vetoed funding for the medical institution that takes care of babies who are born addicted to drugs. Yeah, because they don't want to admit they have a problem. They don't want people actually off the drugs. They seem to want to keep people on the drugs. In fact, there's this op-ed from the Union Bulletin that said, without a warning or even a phone call, the Pediatric Interim Care Center in Kent, Washington, a resource for treating drug-exposed newborns, was cut off entirely from Washington state funds through a partial budget veto by Governor Bob Ferguson. That means he had to go in by line and veto this, knowing this is what he was vetoing. And as Travis Couture said yesterday during an interview with us, which you can now find over at KVI.com and all the podcast platforms and everywhere else from yesterday's episode, he didn't even go down there to look them in the eye. He didn't even go down there to see what he was cutting funding for. According to the article, not only were the funds cut, but the contract allowing the Department of Children, Youth, and Families to place infants in the care of the PIC was ended, making it impossible for babies to be placed in the facility. Even though Washington lawmakers knew the value of helping drug-exposed newborns and vote to keep the funds in place, the governor had a better idea for how to allocate taxpayer money. Did it go to laser hair removal for trans inmates? Did it go to the self-service stations for Jack City Rain? What did you spend that money on? They want to keep people addicted. That's the sad thing. People who are addicted need government services. They want, and that beefs up their numbers. That beefs up their numbers. Look, we need more funding for more government services because look how many people are addicted. They're trying to keep people addicted. They are not about helping anybody. They are about making people's lives worse for political reasons, for taxpayer funds. That's what they're doing, and it's despicable. And by the way, we warned about the injection sites, and they came here. Now we're warning about this drug dealing by the government. Guess what, guys? It's going to be coming here. I guarantee you in the next legislative session, this is something they're going to be discussing. Guarantee it. Guarantee it. They're going to be looking for funding to give people drugs bought with your taxpayer dollars. It's absolutely insane. Speaking of insane, my friends, when we come back, Amazon appears to be altering their deliveries because of unrest in certain areas. We'll give you the details when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. And before we head down the left coast, before we do that, I want to tell you a little story about here, which makes me realize why this is such an essential service. Amazon pharmacies, didn't even know it existed, had no idea it existed till a listener sent us a tip. The Walgreens near my house has become such a drug den infested chop shop, prostitution, whatever, that I don't feel comfortable going there anymore. And I'm the guy who likes driving in my Dodge Charger, right? I'm tough. Oh, they think I'm a drug dealer. I'll be perfectly fine. Yeah, you know what happened the other day? I'm driving in the Dodge Charger, and I'm picking up a prescription, and I'm sitting there, and I see them start eyeing my car. And I see them start walking towards my car. And luckily, I got the prescription, and I tore out of there because I was actually concerned about getting carjacked. You know, my friends over at Renton Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram just hooked me up with a Jeep Wrangler Rubicon. This thing is a beast. If they came after me in that thing, I'd be like, all right, death race, let's do it. Because oh man, this thing's for Antifa control. I'll tell you that. It's neon green. I'm calling it the Hulk. That's what we're gonna call this sucker. It is a beast on wheels. That's right, for Antifa control. But you know what? I should really just say to my wife, you know what? We're switching everything over to Amazon pharmacies. But can we count on Amazon pharmacies? One of our listeners, Nick, sent us this recording. I went and confirmed it myself. Mike was there. He's like, why do you keep calling Amazon? Why are you calling Amazon pharmacies? I'm like, I'm trying to replicate the call. I had to know which option to push, and guess what? I got it. So when you call Amazon pharmacies, they have a fascinating disclaimer on there about their deliveries because of the mostly peaceful riots. Give a listen.
Thank you for calling Amazon Pharmacy and PillPack. If this is an emergency, please hang up and dial 911.
It's not yet.
All calls are recorded for quality and security.
That's good.
For help with PillPack, please press 1.
Don't need that.
For help with Amazon Pharmacy, please press 2.
I do need that. Where's
if you
the
are
two?
unsure
Where's
which
the
of
two?
our
Press
pharmacy
two.
offerings you
Here we
use
go. Press 2.
or would like to
Press 2. There we go. All right.
Please be aware that we are actively monitoring the impact of ongoing civil demonstrations on our delivery operations. We are making every effort to maintain our service standards, but some areas may experience delivery delays.
Wait a minute. Let me say that one more time. Hang on. Can we just back that up a little bit? Let's just back that truck up.
Pharmacy offerings you use or would like to learn. Please be aware that we are actively monitoring the impact of ongoing civil demonstrations on our delivery operations. We are making every effort to maintain our service standards, but some areas may experience delivery delays.
All right. Hang on a second here. Where are you having these delivery delays? You know, you don't get delivery delays because of peaceful protests. Was this meant for California? Was this meant for Oregon? Was this meant for our area? It's on the generic phone tree. I don't think it's tied by zip code. I think they just put the thing out there. Or is it left over from 2020? Do you remember during the autonomous zone, people were saying they couldn't get their deliveries inside the autonomous zone because of the riots? Do you remember all that? So now Amazon Pharmacies either has that back or never got rid of it from back then. But maybe it's because of the riots. Well, if Waymo can't get down there anymore, they had to suspend service in California. They've got this problem too. By the way, you may not know this. The riots haven't stopped in Portland. Every single night, for the last 2 weeks plus, they have been rioting against ICE at the ICE facility. And there is one reporter who is covering it. One. Katie Daviscourt from the Post Millennial. She is there every single night, even though I'm worried about her safety. She is there every single night, to her credit, covering this. Because the mainstream media isn't telling you what's really going on. Would you like to know how KOIN Coin 6 covered this? Tell me if this sounds familiar to you guys. Tell me if this sounds familiar. I've heard this somewhere before. I'm pretty sure I've almost heard this exact language before. Tell me if this sounds familiar to you. All right. Protesters gather for anti-ICE block party outside federal facility in South Portland. Mike, you've seen those videos with the smoke, with the flashbangs, with the assaulting, with the shields. Does that look like a block party to you? You know, I've heard this somewhere before. I've definitely heard this somewhere before.
I want to just get a clear sense of this, though, Mayor. Why do you believe the president chose to talk about domination in the face of what's happening, not just in your city, but in many instances when it comes to what the remedy is for the unrest in the country right now? What do you think this is about for him?
I think it shows a complete lack of understanding of why people are in the street. They're in the street fighting a system of domination, and he doesn't understand that. And his response is always one that's bellicose and militaristic, but he doesn't honor the military in that way either, as you've seen from the line of generals that have disputed him. So I think he says dominate because he totally does not understand what is happening in America, and he is desperately trying to start the old fights and the old divisions that put him in power in the first place.
How long do you think Seattle in those few blocks looks like this?
I don't know. We could have the summer of love.
The Summer of Love. It's a block party. It's a street fair. Oh, Jenny Durkin had to basically say she's not running for office in disgrace. And where's Chris Cuomo these days? Where's he? Oh, right. He's at News Nation, right? Does anybody actually watch him on News Nation? No. So those are the people who said this last time. KOIN, Coin 6. Have you guys learned your lesson at all? You're going with the block party narrative. Now, they put it in quotes because they're quoting Antifa. But here's the thing, guys. Anybody who's watching Katie Daviscourt's videos is going to know it's not a block party. It's not a street fair. It's not the Summer of Love, Coin 6. What is it actually? Violence on top of violence on top of violence. According to Katie at the Post Millennial, for more than 2 weeks, Oregon anti-ICE activists have occupied the area outside the ICE facility in Portland, setting up tent encampments equipped with riot gear and other supplies. Many individuals in the occupation are affiliated with the anarchist extremist group Antifa, whose members have been clashing with federal police officers on a near nightly basis to protect the Trump administration's mass deportation operations. Undercover video captured on Monday shows unmasked Antifa militants regrouping roughly 1 block away from the ICE facility after local authorities swept their illicit tent encampment on Sunday. Shortly after, individuals can be observed arriving with new supplies, allowing the group to continue the ongoing occupation. In order to ensure that the area is occupied 24/7, the anti-ICE demonstrators work in shifts. There are roughly 20 to 50 black-clad individuals on the ground at any given moment, and the number of protesters increases when similar-minded left-wing activist groups collaborate for demonstrations, which have resulted in the police declaring riots. During the day, masked protesters can be observed meandering around the ICE facility, holding signs with phrases such as blank ICE, and hurling abusive language at federal police officers. You know what else they can be observed doing? Katie had this video. I had to look away. 2 of these people in the black bloc went around the corner and just started going at it against the building. And, I guess the resistance. I guess Antifa. I guess the flashbangs really make you want to... It makes you kind of ornery, right? Kind of ornery. We'll go with that for the kiddies, right? Get y'all hot to trot. It did look like a man and a woman, though. I was kind of concerned. I'm like, well, what are we watching here? Yeah, it was graphic. Something I'll never get out of my mind. Yes, Antifa story. Yes, that's what we'll call it. I don't think there's going to be any, no snapping, no dancing with that. Yes, we'll get Spielberg to direct it. It'll be fun. It'll be very, very exciting. Yes, Summer of Love story. We'll call it something like that. Department of Homeland Security's Federal Protective Services officers have bolstered their presence and are now visible at the ICE facility at all hours of the day as a result of the ongoing acts of violence and other criminal behavior. Now, mind you, when you see the people unmasked who have been arrested, who decided to FAFO when it came to the, he's looking at it. Are you laughing? Are you looking at the video right now? Don't look at the video, Mike. Don't do it. You'll go blind. Wait, it is the Summer of Love. Oh, look at that. The Summer of Antifa love.
And in other unrelated news, I am now in the market for a new work computer because now I have to throw this one in the garbage. Disgusting.
Yeah, I mean, that's aggressive. That's, well, whatever. We're going to leave it there. You don't want the mental picture in your head. So these people that are getting arrested look exactly how they look confused. They look troubled. They look like they have mental issues. And also, who spends all day attacking a facility when you know you're going to lose with your plastic shields? And now we have over 10 people that have been federally charged. At this point, guys, this is just like the summer of 2020. Do you remember for 120 consecutive nights, 120 consecutive nights, they rioted against the federal courthouse. And Portland wouldn't let Donald Trump do anything about it. Now Donald Trump is actually doing something about it. And the left is losing their minds. Absolutely losing their minds. And they're going to be there every night. But guess what? The media doesn't want to cover it because they don't want you knowing this is going on every night because they know it's an 80-20 issue. And for them, Antifa is just an idea. It's not an organ. It's just an idea, right? When we come back, my friends, lots more to discuss. A teacher in our area was fired for teaching a literary classic that's in the curriculum. We'll tell you what happened when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Well, my friends, there's a new story out of Washington where we have a teacher who said a word in class in context of a book they were teaching. Now, the teacher is being fired for using the N-word because it was in a book, To Kill a Mockingbird. And now you have a whole bunch of cancel culture is coming for him. Joining us now to discuss on the Warrior Injury Law Studio line is Matthew Mastronardi, who is a teacher who is now looking for a job. So, by the way, if you're looking for a literary teacher, be sure to reach out to him because I'm sure he will need the help. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Hey, Ari, it's good to be with you. Thank you.
Such a pleasure. So why don't we start from the beginning? You were teaching To Kill a Mockingbird in class. We all know it's got racial undertones, but the reason we teach it in class is so we can explain these things to kids. And then it seems like the school didn't like that you were teaching it, even though it's part of the curriculum?
Yeah, so there's some nuance to this story, and I appreciate you giving me the chance to have it. So I teach high school Spanish, and I want to be upfront about that. I teach high school Spanish at West Valley. And this book is not something that is normally talked about in my classroom. It's part of the English curriculum, but they are assigned to read it. You are right. It is approved by the school. And I was walking around my class just on a normal day, and I overheard two girls discussing the book. They were talking about how in their English class, they are instructed to skip over the word in question, right? We're talking about the N-word. I'm not going to say it here, but it's a naughty word, the N-word. And when I heard that they have to skip over the word, I sort of just chimed in and I said, oh, that's interesting. Like, that takes away from the historical context of the book. Like, when you're reading it, you should read every word because the author chose historically accurate language to depict a certain time. And so this was sort of just like a spontaneous conversation. And it resulted in a girl asking me sort of point blank in front of the class, said, well, Mr. Mastronardi, if you were reading the book, would you say the word? And I have 30 eyes looking at me, 30 sets of eyes. And I said, yes, if I were teaching the book, if I were reading from To Kill a Mockingbird, I would read it as written. I would say every word. And so a boy handed me the book. He had it open to the page and he said, okay, do it. And I tried to make it a teaching moment about context versus intent, that nobody should ever call anybody this in a discriminatory way. But, you have a right and a duty as a reader to understand the historical context. And, you shouldn't have to skip over words in fear that somebody might call you a racist or, you shouldn't have to only engage with the book upon certain conditions. And so it was a teachable moment that I was trying to prevail upon. And it's gotten me in a lot of trouble because that video of me doing that was recorded.
So here's what I don't get. You say the word, you're saying it in context, you're talking about the book itself, and the school, as opposed to defending you and saying it's part of the curriculum, we teach it this way, this is why we say it, decide to take punitive action against you. And to complicate this, it seems like the students and the parents didn't want you gone. It just seems like the school wanted you gone.
Yes, that's exactly right. And we're seeing that the school board does not care what the students think. They started a petition. When I told my kids that I was being let go and I'm not coming back next year, they were upset. They were very upset about this, and they started a petition that garnered over 2,500 signatures. I had a couple press conferences where students showed up and they're rallying. A couple students made a Instagram fan page, and it's pretty active. And yesterday at the school board meeting, there was standing room only. They had to open up 2 overflow rooms, and we had public comments for over an hour. Parents, community members, and lots of students came in support of me, saying they wanted me to be reinstated. And the school board it appears that they had already made their mind up. They did not care. They went straight into the agenda and they voted, and within 2 minutes it was over.
Wow. So they came in with this ready to go, ready to get rid of you. They didn't even want to hear any dissenting opinion. Now, here's what I don't understand. Was it activist groups getting involved? Was there pressure from public officials? Or was it just this was the school board and they said, yeah, we're not doing this?
There are some forces that have incredible influence over public schools now. There's progressive secular ideologies that sort of govern what is considered orthodoxy. And, I think that those forces were really upset that I just spoke the truth in my classroom. I was responding to a student-initiated question that, they were interested in having a thought-provoking discussion. And that me telling them the truth, it kind of crossed the line for them. And I think I committed a violation against a modern blasphemy law. And what you're seeing is that will be punished. And I think it sends a chilling message to all teachers that by responding with a genuine desire to serve students, it could cost you your job.
I think that's crazy, especially when you think about this is a book that's taught in schools all across America. It's taught specifically to expose this kind of stuff, and the school board doesn't even want to hear the nuance about it. I think actually they made an example out of you, and in the process took away a valuable teaching opportunity where they should have said, our teacher is teaching this because, especially given all the other stuff they insist on being taught in the schools these days, we teach this to teach that racism is bad. That's why the book is taught in school. I read it in school explicitly for this reason. And I wonder if we're almost at a point where they're going to stop selling books like this. They're going to stop selling movies or streaming movies like Blazing Saddles, which literally, if you took away all the racist stuff in Blazing Saddles, would be 8 minutes long. But the whole point of the movie is to make fun of racism. People just don't understand this. So what's your next steps?
Yeah, my next step is first, I'm just going to take a deep breath. The last month, I've been really trying to just follow due process. The reason that this story didn't come to light earlier is because I remained fairly quiet about it because I was trying to respect due process and try to convince the school and the superintendent that they're making a horrible decision. And so it only recently in the last couple of weeks blew up because I was left to advocate for myself. And, if I wasn't going to be able to get reinstated through due process, I felt like I had to win in the court of public opinion. And so next step is, I really don't know, to be honest. I don't have another job lined up, but, this has created a lot of opportunities just to speak with people from all across the country. People are reaching out to lend support, and I'm having conversations with people who are really interested in me sharing my story. And so I hope this outlet allows me to maybe grow a platform. And for anybody listening, I do have a podcast. It's called The Great Reassessment, and I just interview guests about truth-seeking, a lot of underlying principles that are difficult, but they face our society today, and amazing guests that talk about a lot of different things, history, economics, I've interviewed doctors and authors and professors, and so if people want to check that out, they can. But I might try to lean into that a little bit.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm sure somebody in our audience might know of some positions that are available for a Spanish teacher and a qualified teacher who's looking for a job right now. So anybody in our audience, if you know of anything that's available in our area, please email me, ari@kvi.com. That's ari@kvi.com. Matthew Mastronardi, thank you so much for being with us today. Really do appreciate you sharing your story with us.
Hey, Ari, thank you so much. God bless.
God bless you as well. We got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Believe it or not, the people at NATO calling Donald Trump daddy is not fake news. Young Zach, what do you got for us today?
Well, I do have some other real news, actually. Have you heard that big balls have shifted? His position in the Trump administration. He's now going to work...
Sorry. You just cracked me with that one right off the bat.
Right off the bat.
Cracking nuts right away. Okay.
Yeah. Happy Friday, everybody. So enjoy your nuts.
A real quote. He's going to be working for the Social Security Administration. So Stephen McGraw, spokesperson for the Social Security Administration, I think, he says his work will be focused on improving the functionality of the Social Security website and advancing our mission of delivering more efficient services to the American people. So, in other words, big balls will be deep in the bowels of our elderly's financial well-being.
Thank you, Zach.
Ew.
That was graphic.
I'll take troubling visuals for 100, please.
Yes.
It's the United. There's nothing troubling about the U.S. government.
That's not where they go. Gross.
Oh, very good. What else you got, Zach?
All right.
Take a breath. You're good. Take a breath.
All right, to the Babylon Bee. To the Babylon Bee. Pete Hegseth vows military will not discriminate against chicks, broads, or dames.
That's very good.
The Ayatollah proudly announces Iran has destroyed 14 bunker buster bombs with its nuclear facilities.
True stories. Oh, that's good.
Oh man, he walked right into that one.
Like just standing on that rig, just whack, whack.
Babylon Bee also had this one. Defeated Andrew Cuomo left groping for answers.
Oh no. Why'd you kill that lady? No jail time?
He didn't kill a lady.
He killed everybody's lady. He killed everybody's
Literally,
grandparents.
I no longer have grandparents because Andrew Cuomo killed them, according to Ari Hoffman.
Not me.
Well, you've said for the entirety of this week, well, because Andrew Cuomo killed everyone's grandparents, and I quote, everyone's. Yours, mine, his, everyone's.
They're all dead.
My
Super
parents
dead.
have
All
some
dead.
My
Super
parents
dead.
have some explaining as to who the elderly gentlemen in my family are.
Also, call your grandparents, make sure they're okay.
Death,
You don't Cuomo get them.
death, horrible death.
Death, 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 horrible death.
Say
Very
hey to Joey
good.
for me.
Very good. What else you got,
Big
Zach?
Brother returns July 10th.
I'm very happy for you. I'm excited for you, Mike.
Yes. I'm excited for
I
me,
wish
too.
I was still allowed to watch it. She won't listen to this. It's fine. My wife doesn't like that show. It's a very time-intensive show. So if your household's not on board, you need a strong alliance to watch that show.
Please, as if that is the documented reason for Mrs. Young Zach to not watch the television program Big Brother.
Well, I'm just saying, if one person doesn't want to watch it and the other person does, there's not enough time in a week to separate and watch your own programs.
This is true.
That's true.
That's all I'm saying.
Yes, that is true.
Anyway, last one from the Babylon Bee. Trump's Christian faith questioned as he didn't say fudge.
Very good.
That's good.
Very good.
I've seen a fair number of memes of depositing into the swear jar. A lot
sure.
of AI Trumps with a swear jar. It's
I
kind of
think
fun.
Doge should initiate a swear jar.
Yeah, there you go. I like that.
Federal.
Well, especially now that the Democrats have said this is how we be cool. We just curse all the time.
The IRS has to manage the federal swear jar. We'll see ads on our here radio station go, if you're behind in paying your IRS swear jar, we can get you,
there you go.
we can get you some swear jar relief.
Man, that would be a federal slush fund unheard of. Not since the soda tax here in Seattle going into the Checks Notes general fund. Where does that money go? Why
Yeah.
are we still paying into it?
I used to do my
generals.
my Kessel runs every week out to Renton to buy soda.
Yes.
Just because I don't do that.
Well, I think a federal swear jar would be bitchin'.
What else you got, Zach?
Another real story. This one's from Fox 13. Police are searching for a suspect in a tuxedo who allegedly fired shots in the First Hill neighborhood yesterday before fleeing on a Lime scooter.
That's a rough prom.
Yeah, I mean, the case isn't black and white.
Oh, very good.
And the police are saying it's going to be cumberbund sum to solve.
Oh, no.
But please, everyone, call SPD if you have any wingtips on this case.
God!
You saw too much of that movie last night. That's why you like the movie. All the puns.
Suit yourself.
Yeah.
Stay tuned from this time Monday, 4:45 for The Real Deal, where we will talk about Amazon Prime Video's Heads of State starring John Cena and Idris Elba. And that is a plot point in that entire movie where like running gags of one-upping puns, and I'm just like, if there was ever a time where I was squirming in my seat more directly proportioned to young Zach hopping up and down with excitement, it was an interesting time at the movie.
Usually I'm the one squirming in my seat when I see Mike hopping up and down for excitement, because that means he's going to ruin a movie for a lot of people.
Yeah. Still found a way to do that. So.
Yeah, you did.
Don't even worry about it. Don't even worry
We'll
about it.
talk about all that, plus give away fantabulous prizes on Monday at 4:45 during The Real Deal. Zach, what else you got for us? Oh, we're done for today. That's all we got. Well, don't forget, you can listen to Young Zach on the Morning Ride every single weekday from 6 to 9 a.m. with Phil. When we come back, lots more more to discuss as the show continues, including all the good news coming out of the Supreme Court today. What does it mean for you? What does it mean for us here in the socialist utopia of Washington? You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI.
Bye.
Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and on the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up at 5:45, your chance to win fantabulous prizes, including $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card, and your last chance to win tickets to the King County Fair. But before we get to any of that, got some breaking news for you right now.
Talk Radio 570 KVI. Breaking news on the Ari Hoffman Show.
Senator Tim Kaine's War Powers Resolution, which would have required Congress to debate and vote on whether the president could declare war or strike Iran, was struck down in the Senate on a largely party line vote today. This was a waste of everybody's time. 1, the president's party is in power. 2, we're done with the Iran business for now. 3, it was an unqualified or overqualified success. And yet you guys keep pushing this. You're already behind the times. Maybe you didn't hear today there was a little peace deal between Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Maybe we're on to a new conflict, guys. There might be peace in the Middle East. All this is breaking out. And you want to be on the wrong side of history? Now, mind you, all the Democrats still voted for it. All of them, except for one, John Fetterman. Here's what he said.
On the Kaine resolution, which will come up tomorrow night, you can vote now.
Well, I'll say this. I love that man, and he's coming in from a very principled side. But I'm going to vote no on that, simply because I would never want to restrict any future president, Republican or Democrat, to do this kind of a military kind of exercise that was very successful. This has been.
Can't find a Fetterman on the Democrat side of the aisle, that's for sure. So this thing goes down in flames. Now, mind you, not all Republicans voted against it. So Senator Rand Paul, who's been vocal in his thoughts about congressional war powers in recent days, according to Fox News. Tim Kaine was almost vice president of the United States. You remember he ran with Hillary Clinton? Yeah, most people don't. So you're going to try and restrict Donald Trump after one military operation? Didn't Barack Obama drop something like 28,000 bombs and drone a gajillion people when he was president? Didn't hear you guys complaining then. Hey, Tim Kaine, you were in the Senate back then. You've been in the Senate, I think, longer than I've been alive at this point. Or at least Chuck Schumer has. So, dude, how come you didn't bring this forward then, my dude? How come? Just kind of curious. Why? President Trump has been so successful at all of this, at everything he's doing to make the world a safer place, that now peace may be breaking out in the Middle East. Here's Steve Witkoff, special envoy to the Middle East, talking about what might be on the horizon.
One of the president's key objectives is that the Abraham Accords be expanded, that more countries come into it, and we are working on that on my team and in coordination with the Secretary of State and the entire State Department. And we think we're going to have some pretty big announcements on countries that are now coming into the Abraham Peace Accords. And we're hoping for normalization across an array of countries that maybe people would have never contemplated would come in. So we're excited for that prospect. That will also be a stabilizer in the Middle East.
He said that 3 days ago. 3 days ago, we had that sound clip. It's been sitting in our folder since then. Mike's been re-racking it every day. Thank you, Mike. And now we know what he was talking about. Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Who's been paying attention to any of that? Nobody. Nobody. President Trump today was talking about the historic achievements they've had so far with all these different peace deals.
This is a tremendous breakthrough. In a few short months, we've now achieved peace between India and Pakistan, Israel and Iran, and the DRC and Rwanda, and a couple of others also. Serbia, they were getting ready to go to war with a group I won't even mention because it didn't happen. We were able to stop it, but I have a friend in Serbia, and they said we're going to go to war again, and I won't mention that it's Kosovo. But it's Kosovo. But they were going to have a big-time war, and we stopped it. We stopped it because of trade. They want to trade with the United States. I said, we don't trade with people that go to war. And we said that also with, if you take a look at Pakistan and India, it was great. They have two great leaders two great leaders, and they were able to stop. They were in the midst of a big fight. I guess everybody saw, and it was going to get very bad. And they are nuclear nations, very powerful nuclear nations. And
look at all those wins. Do you think the administration is ever going to get the credit it deserves for all these wins? What about Anthony Blinken? You remember him? Hey, Blinken! You remember him? Yeah. The entire world got set on fire because him and Joe Biden were such incompetent fools. Here's the complete polar opposite. Our own Secretary of State, Marco Rubio.
Mr. President, first of all, thank you. When I first came on this job a few months ago, you made it very clear that the priority of this administration under your leadership was going to be the pursuit of peace. And from day one, whether it's been in Ukraine and Russia, whether it's been Pakistan, India, whether it's been Iran and Israel, and in the continent of Africa, your priority's been on peace. And today we see this come to fruition. It's sad. Wars get a lot more attention than peace. But peace is harder than war, a lot harder. And I want to congratulate both of the leaders here and their respective presidents for choosing the harder path, which is often peace, than the easier path, which sometimes is war, as costly and as bloody as it may be. And I echo the Vice President's statements, and that is that Americans should be very proud that the number one voice for peace in the world today is our president, your president. And so thank you, President Trump. And I want to, again, recognize Dr. Boulos and the work he's put into this from day one. He's really put a lot of time and effort, and as our friends from the respective countries can share with us.
Yeah. Where's all the Marjorie Taylor Greens today? Where's all the Tucker Carlsons today? Where's all Matt Gaetz today? He's going to drag us into war. He's going to drag us into war. Do you think the mainstream media will ever credit Donald Trump for stopping all these wars? There was one journalist today who was asking him about this.
And congratulations has secured peace in Africa to a bloody, horrific war that's gone on for decades and no other president could do it. Do you think the mainstream media will finally...
I'm telling you. But you're right. No other president could do it. They tried, and they didn't even try, I don't think. I actually don't think they tried. Do you think Biden tried? He didn't know he was alive.
Do you think the mainstream media will finally give you credit where credit is due?
No, the media will never give me credit, but the people give me credit. That's why I'm here. The people didn't give me. That's why we're here in a landslide. We got all 7 states. We won the popular vote. So the media won't give me credit, but the people give me credit. That's more important to me.
I want you to go back in time for a minute. Do you know what it's the 1-year anniversary of? Do you know what's the 1-year anniversary of? The debate between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. That was a year ago today. You remember some of the highlights of Joe Biden's debate performance?
Both are making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the COVID. Excuse me, with dealing with everything we have to do with. Look, if we finally beat Medicare, we're trying to provide housing for Black Americans. The impact on the choice, the idea that they're gonna. I've been proposing that everybody the millionaires pay 1%. So no one I've not raised the cost of Social Security for anybody. I got my handicap, which when I was vice president, down to a 6. And wants to get rid of the ability of Medicare for us to be able to negotiate drug prices with the big pharma companies. What I'm going to do is fix the tax system. For example, we have 1,000 trillionaires in America. Billionaires in America. No one was hurt. No one Israeli was accidentally killed, and it stopped. And I'm going to continue to move until we get the total ban on the total initiative relative to what we're going to do with more border patrol and more asylum officers.
I would argue that is the moment when Joe Biden lost the election, not when Donald Trump won the election. I was having this discussion, actually, at the Turning Point USA conference with a few people earlier this year, right after President Trump won the election. And somebody asked the question, they said, when did President Trump win the election? And they were making the case. It was after the assassination attempt. I said, nope, that's not what it was. And they said, what do you mean? I said, the momentum was already on his side at that point. It went to the stratosphere after that. Do you know when President Trump won the election? When he got indicted. because when he got indicted by the Democrats, they made everything he said true. They're not after me, they're after you. I'm just in the way. And when everybody saw how ridiculous that was, how ridiculous those charges were, they said, really, this is what you're going after him for? Joe Biden's got classified documents in his basement, too, in his garage. You're not going after him. I would argue that when President Trump won the election is when he got indicted, because that led to him getting the nomination. He buried it was pretty close between him and DeSantis. He was still in the lead. But right after that, that was the end of everybody else's campaign. His fundraising went through the roof. His volunteers went through the roof. That's when he won re-election. I want to know what you think. When do you think President Trump won re-election? Because I think it was the moment he got indicted. Do you think it was the assassination? Do you think it was this disastrous debate for Joe Biden? But if you want to know, first of all, if you want to weigh in, give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757 on when you think President Trump won the debate. Won the election. 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. But Joe Biden, do you remember after that? Somebody posted this today. They pulled up what the Democrats posted the day after the debate. They put up a picture of Joe Biden from the Democrats' account, and it just says, this is who won the debate last night. What you just heard, they think he won. Are they listening to Jill Biden too much on that one?
Joe, you did such a great job. You answered every question. You knew all the facts. And let me ask the crowd, what did Trump do? Why?
Yes, the kindergarten teacher was holding up the baby president who couldn't do anything anymore. Well done, Jill. Well
also,
done.
that's real bad crowd work where the crowd doesn't actually know what it's like. And what did Donald Trump do?
They all just kind of yell.
Yeah, it was just a bunch of yelling. She's like, why?
Right. She's so used to everybody repeating what you have to say. She's old too. You have to tell them what to say.
Right.
Before you say.
Man, what a shrill, shrieking shrew. I'm glad we're finally rid of Dr. Jill.
Or are we? We're going to find out who is really running the auto pen, and she'll have to do an interview eventually, right? But guys, you want to know why the world was on fire? That's who was running the country. Jill Biden. That's who was running the country. Do you remember what the press briefings were like toward the end of Joe Biden's presidency? The press didn't even want to be there. Nobody wanted to talk to Karine Jean-Pierre because she wasn't giving any answers. You remember how boring those things were to watch? At some point, we stopped clipping her because she got so boring to listen to. Contrast that with today. This is President Trump with the media wrapped around his finger. This is him in the White House press briefing room today.
By the way, so many questions. Should we keep this going, Pam? This is the opposite of Biden. Biden would take a half a question and he'd leave without answering it. Go ahead. You tell me when it gets boring. Okay?
The press wants to be there, whether they like him, whether they hate him, because if you get that kind of access to the president and you get a chance at a question, of course you're going to ask it. In fact, if I get another invitation to the White House, I'm going to ask to be in the press briefing room because that seems like where the party is. Can I get to go to the Oval Office next time? That'd be a lot of fun. I have this little checkboard at home. I'm just going to check off these little things I'm trying to get to during the Trump administration. This is historic, guys, and it's fun. And you know what? The left, even though they hate him, and even though they're trying to destroy everything about him, they don't want to admit that all their ratings are going up, that their circulation's going up because everybody wants to know what Trump says next. I'm shocked. Our local outlets, it's Trump, 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 Trump. You know how hard it is to find local news anymore? It's so hard to find local news because all they're talking about is Trump. That's all they're talking about because they know he's good for ratings. So to try and save their failing outlets, all they're doing is talking about him. That's it. And however they can spin a story. Oh, well, Nick Brown reacts to the SCOTUS decision, even though he lost to Donald Trump. Oh, just see, that's that. Boom. Front page of the news. Front page of the news. There was a reporter today who's a native of the Democratic Republic of the Congo and a White House reporter. This is what they said to President Trump. Listen very, very carefully to what they said. This is a reporter.
So, as Caroline has mentioned, President, first of all, I want to let you know that I'm the only African reporter accredited here at the White House and covered for the entire continent. So I just arrived from Congo, Democratic Republic of the Congo, yesterday. I went to see firsthand
how the people is feeling and the president's message, President Felix Tshisekedi, about this upcoming peace deal. And let me tell you firsthand what I've witnessed myself. I spoke with the people on the street. I spoke with youth. They know your name. They know that a president named President Trump is working hard to finally bring peace to the country. I saw hope. They have hope now for a better day in Congo. They see what you're doing as a future, better future for Congo. And I had opportunity to sit down with President Felix Tshisekedi for an interview because I want to understand his mind, what he's thinking, his feeling about everything that your administration is doing. And he told me firsthand that for many years, many American presidents overlooked this conflict. They didn't do nothing. Even myself, I cover President Biden's administration. I pressed many times about this conflict. People are dying in Congo. This country has so much potential, but they need help because this war is destroying the country.
Right.
They never gave me any answer. And he told me, President Tshisekedi, that you have no idea, he's very thankful for what you're doing, for what your administration is doing. Not only him, the entire Congolese people. They see that finally they will have hope. And President Tshisekedi also mentioned at the end of my interview that when peace finally comes to Democratic Republic of the Congo, he's thinking to nominate you as a Nobel Prize Peace because he said you deserve, you have been working to bring peace in the world, not only at the Congo, and he's very hopeful to meet you in the future.
Think about that for a second. That's a reporter who's reporting what they're seeing in their own country. That's a reporter who's telling the truth about what they're seeing so the whole world would know. When's the last time you saw a clip of what's happening in the Congo? When's the last time you saw a clip of what's happening in Rwanda? It's not the 90s anymore, but this conflict has been going on since long before that. And yet President Trump's the one to make a deal to solve it? That is now, by my count, three. Three people who have nominated President Trump for a Nobel Peace Prize. Three. And look around. Do you think he's actually going to get it? Nah. No, they're not going to give it to him. He's not doing it for the awards. He's doing it for us. He's doing it for all of us. And you know what? I'm not the guy who's rah-rah Trump all the time, even though a lot of my haters like to say so. We on this show do the things we like about President Trump and the things we don't like about President Trump. And I'm going to tell you, this was an amazing week for President Trump. This was an incredible week. Look at all the Supreme Court wins today. All the stuff on birthright citizenship, all the stuff on restricting these judges who think they rank higher than the president. In fact, there's even stuff with regard to health and human services today. The amount of good, positive news we are getting day after day after day. Did you see how the stock market closed today? Stock market closed up today, and it's at record highs. Remember just a few months ago, everybody said, oh, the economy's crashing, we're in trouble. I don't know why the Fed hasn't lowered interest rates yet. The economy is clearly on the road to recovery. And in fact, when we come back, my friends, we're going to tell you how good things are on the road to recovery and how it looks like the tariffs are actually working and we're getting the best deals. We're making deals with China. We'll tell you what's going on when we come back and what it means for your wallet. But first, Todd Herman's Daily Thoughtcast right now on the Ari Hoffman Show. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, coming up at 5:45, your chance to win a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card and your last chance to win tickets to the King County Fair. Yet another reason to always keep your radio tuned to 570 KVI, left on your dial, always right on the issues. You can also stream us at KVI.com, download the KVI app, and, of course, subscribe to us on whatever your preferred podcast platform is. Also, another reminder, on Monday, during The Real Deal, we'll be giving you our review of the new Amazon release, Heads of State, and also have fantabulous prizes for you to try and win. We went in there last night with, as Mike would say, a deep crew. We went in with a lot of people, had a lot of fun, and we'll tell you all about that on Monday.
Well, we got a special guest joining us as well for that Real Deal discussion. It's going to be a 4-way cage match.
Exactly.
No, I have to buy some more microphones or something like that.
We actually took with us, young Zach came with us. He comes with us more often these days. And also, Jeff Pogela from Northwest News Radio came with us, and I think he enjoyed it more than any of us did, and we all really liked the movie, but we'll tell you more about all that on Monday. So make sure you're listening at Monday at 4:45 for your chance to win. Okay, switching gears for a minute here. We had all these Supreme Court decisions today, and they were huge, huge decisions, right? But something that comes out of this, don't forget last week, the Trump administration put a pause on ICE worksite operations in detaining illegal immigrants in the agricultural, hotel, and restaurant industries. Now, while all these rulings about what the Trump administration can do and who they can deport would apply to these people, the question is the Trump administration going to resume those deportations? Now, when we've asked this question in the past, you have all given me very, very passionate responses. But we have a real problem here. The problem we have here is that Americans, it's not that they don't want to do the jobs, it's that they're not doing the jobs. And we have an entire society that has now been convinced that they have to go to college to get a good job, where it just ain't true. We have to convince them, go to trade school, and then you'll get a good job. But at the end of the day, we have jobs that are not being done by Americans. And are Americans actually going to step up to replace them? I was actually looking into child labor laws. And this was fascinating to me because you used to have more kids working, and they would work from a young age and learn more work ethics. I don't know if it was legal or not, but I've been working since I was 10 years old. Since I was 10 years old, I always had a job of some kind, whether it was babysitting, whether it was working for caterers, whether it was schlepping boxes, whether it was teaching water skiing, whether it was bartending. I always had a job because I always wanted money. And I was happy to do any job because I was happy to have that money. But now it seems like that work ethic is completely gone. My son talks to his friends. My son, he's always working. He'll go work for the local caterer, or he'll go do whatever else it is. I mean, Mike knows this. He's seen the kid coming and going around here. But so many of his friends, he says, hey, okay, so here's an example. So because of what happened with Israel, a whole bunch of people couldn't get here to work their camp jobs. So they started offering up all these jobs of the kids who couldn't go on their summer programs to Israel. Now, a lot of that's back on track now, but there's still some gaps. But a lot of kids said, no, I'll just sit on my butt for the summer, as opposed to go working at a camp or something else. They're having these real staffing shortages. And that's the new mentality. Whereas you or me, as kids, we would have said, it's a job, I'll take it. Oh, wait, I get to go hang out with my friends and it's a job? Of course I'll take it. Oh, you mean I get to go away for the summer and you're going to pay me? Of course I'll take it. That's how we used to think about it. But unfortunately, they don't think about that now. So, agricultural, hotel, restaurant industries. Do you want the Trump administration to ramp up deportations in those industries, or would you rather find some kind of pathway to citizenship? Now, I know anytime I mention this, we get some very, very passionate responses where a lot of you say, you're okay to do that, but we have guest worker programs. Why don't we start with that before we go to citizenship? Or if they leave the country, then come back, we can go to citizenship. Or maybe we don't even talk about citizenship. Maybe it's just the guest worker program. What do you think is the best way to approach this problem? Give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Meanwhile, Justice Amy Coney Barrett had some really strong words on Friday for Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, accusing her of taking an extreme position on the role of the judiciary. Writing in the Supreme Court opinion on nationwide injunctions, Barrett said that Jackson's dissent contained rhetoric, and she signaled that the liberal justice's arguments were not worth much attention. You mean her colleagues don't even think that highly of her? They don't think she's a good legal mind. They said, basically, you were hired because Joe Biden was checking intersectional boxes because you're not really good at this justice thing. This is what Justice Amy Coney Barrett wrote. We will not dwell on Justice Jackson's argument, which is at odds with more than 2 centuries worth of precedent, not to mention the Constitution itself. We observe only this. Justice Jackson decries an imperial executive while embracing an imperial judiciary. So basically, it's whoever's in power, that's who Democrats want to be in charge. So if you're out of power, you want the judges in charge. If you're in power, you want the president in charge. The Supreme Court's decision came as part of an emergency request from the Trump administration asking the high court to put an end to judges issuing universal injunctions, including those that judges have placed on President Donald Trump's birthright citizenship order. Barrett, who was appointed by Trump, wrote that when judges issue injunctions to block policies, like those the Trump administration is trying to implement, they cannot apply the injunction to more than the parties involved in the case. According to Fox News, Barrett said the type of order, often called a nationwide injunction, is judicial overreach, which means a judge in Seattle, Washington, cannot make policy for the entire U.S. And it's crazy that that's how we've been operating this whole time. But Barrett's opinion left open numerous other ways that plaintiffs can seek broad forms of relief from the courts, including by bringing class action lawsuits or statewide lawsuits. So anybody who's saying, oh, they restricted all this stuff, no, actually, this is going to make a ton of work for lawyers. Lawyers are about to get very, very rich. They are, guaranteed. Jackson wrote that nationwide injunction should be permissible because the court should allow the president to violate the Constitution. Barrett said that was not based on any existing legal doctrine. Barrett wrote she offers a vision of judicial rule that would make even the most ardent defender of judicial supremacy blush. I mean, that's basically saying you don't know the law, lady. That's basically saying you haven't studied the law. And here's something else. In this day and age, each justice gets 4 or 5 clerks to do research for them on top of Google, perhaps? You can look up, you don't need LexisNexis anymore, the tools that only lawyers had access to. You can Google this stuff, but instead, Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson was an example of what all these liberal justices were doing. We don't like it, so we're just going to say what we want rather than actually find it in law. Thank God this has been put back in the dumpster, which it belongs in. All this judicial overreach is beyond insane. We go to the Warrior Injury Law studio line. Take a call from Jason and Lacey. Jason, what's up, man?
Hey, you were talking about whether we want to see, some easier access to citizenship. I really think that they do need to revamp that whole process. I think that DOJ could do a number on it to make it a little bit better and a little bit more streamlined. Because I know a couple people that, they're illegal and they've accepted the risk that they might get deported. And I don't want to see them go, but they're breaking the law, and it may or may not happen. I'm not going to bust them out, but
we're not encouraging anybody to do any felonies here. But yeah, so Jason, you are the embodiment of what's going on in the country right now, according to Pew Research. Which, by the way, Pew Research is one of the few remaining nonpartisan polling companies. According to Pew Research, they say that over 80% of the electorate of Americans want illegal immigrant criminals gone and out of this country. But also, over 80% of the electorate wants to find a pathway to citizenship for the people who are here who are not criminals. And actually, I got to say, what is Congress doing this whole time? They keep talking about the big, beautiful bill. Why can't you work that out in an afternoon over pizza? Lock the doors, raise the heat, say no water, no food, orders in addition to what you get at the beginning until you guys sort this and work this out. Why is it taking this long? It's absolutely crazy. Jason, appreciate the call. Appreciate the perspective. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. This one from the 619. If they have been productive members of society, allow them to be in a worker visa program. That seems to be the agreement from a lot of people. Got time for one more before we go to our friend Lars Larson. We take a call from Craig in Puyallup. Craig, what's going on? Hello, Craig. Craig going once. Hello, Craig. There you are. Got you, Craig. What's going on, man?
You got me. Okay. Hey, but you got me thinking back to my berry days working in the fields of Puyallup. And I picked berries. Then I did a lot of operating tractors and equipment and delivering berries and stuff like that. at 16, 17 years old. I don't know if they can do that anymore at that age. But my coworkers were Vietnamese and Cambodians from the boat lift. And, we all got along, and they were great folks. And, if you got no record, you're not, come in legally, work legally, and hey, welcome.
Yeah. I think a lot of people would say,
right.
If you get caught up on your taxes, if you pay the fines and everything else, then there's probably something to do here. But I hear the people, who I'm getting the most pushback from anytime I bring this up, Craig, is the people who did come here legally. They're the ones who most don't like any of these ideas. And they say, just do it legally like I did. You want to make the system better, make the system better, but they don't want any shortcuts. And I think that's actually going to be the hardest thing to navigate. Craig, great points. Appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. When we come back, Lars Larson will be unleashed and react to the SCOTUS decisions, plus a whole lot more that's happening closer to home. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Well, my friends, it's Friday, which means it's my absolute favorite day because I get to talk to my friend Lars Larson, who you can catch every single weekday from 12 to 3 right here on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Lars, it's a beautiful day in our country, isn't it today?
It is. And before we get to that, I want to ask you, when are you planning to announce your endorsement of Zoran?
Of Zoran Mamdani? Oh, yeah. You know, I want to be like every single Democrat and just fold.
Doesn't he?
Yeah.
Can you believe that one of the largest Jewish populations in America, New York City, it may be about to see the election of a mayor who hates Jews and wants the whole country of Israel gone?
You know, I'll tell you something. He might be the best thing to ever happen to Israel because all of a sudden all these Jews are going to move out of New York and move to Israel, and then all of a sudden he'll have to deal with a whole lot more Zionists. So,
well, Israel or West Palm Beach, right?
Exactly. You mean mini Jerusalem? Yeah, over there. All right, so forgetting about Mamdani, whatever the hell his name is, forgetting about that anti-Semitic crazy person. So let's talk about the Supreme Court for a minute here. Birthright citizenship, it looks like that whole thing is in serious jeopardy. It looks like the Supreme Court is going to move forward and enforce President Trump's executive order.
Well, I know that what you're going to see, for instance, the Seattle Times today was saying that the birthright citizenship is enshrined in the Constitution. It is not. And in fact, it is actually accurate to say when they wrote the 14th Amendment, they meant to say the children of American slaves. Consider when the 14th Amendment was written. The children of American slaves are American citizens. No debate about that. And of course, they've resolved the other questions about whether or not the children of ambassadors are American citizens. They're not. Whether or not the children of Native Americans who live in their own sovereign countries but are equally American citizens, whether they're citizens. This never was intended that anybody who simply gets born north of the Rio Grande River to an illegal alien mom or dad would be a citizen. It was treated that way for a long time. And if anybody brings up Wong Kim Ark, the only other Supreme Court case, point out that Wong Kim Ark's parents were legally in the United States when he was born here. So when he said, I'm a citizen, and people say, you see, Wong Kim Ark, that determines that foreign nationals who have a baby in America, that's an American baby. In the case where your parents are here legally, if they're not here legally, I've been frustrated over the years because I've been banging on that subject for 30 years now, Ari, and every time I've asked lawyers, how do we challenge this? He says nobody has standing to challenge it. So the only way to challenge it is for Trump to say it ends and then have the people say, no, 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 I or my children are entitled to that. That's how you challenge it. You almost have to challenge it in reverse. For an American citizen to walk in and say, I don't want you to give citizenship to those people, the courts are going to say you don't have standing to challenge it. But when Trump ends it, and then the people who thought their kid was going to get citizenship challenge it, and then get turned down or agreed with by the lower courts, it'll go to the Supreme Court, and I'm confident they'll find there is no such thing as birthright citizenship for the children of illegals.
Well, what's fascinating to me is everybody loves to leave out the part of the 14th Amendment that says subject to the jurisdiction thereof.
Yep.
So if the jurisdiction has laws regarding this kind of stuff, which all of them do, guess what? It doesn't automatically make you a citizen. And yet this is something that the left loves to censor. In fact, John Fetterman, who has been a real surprise to me and somebody I've enjoyed most of the time, he had a big social media post today where he specifically left out that part. And all the comments just keep replying to him with subject to the jurisdiction thereof.
And by the way, Ari, these days, lawyers might put extra verbiage in something just to turn in more billable hours because that's how lawyers roll these days. But back then, you ask anybody, did they put that phrase in by accident? Or did they say, we just need some more flowery words in here that will confuse everybody? No, they put it in for a reason. They could have said, all persons born on American soil are citizens. They could have left it that simple. The reason they put that in was they had to say subject to the jurisdiction thereof. It wasn't really an issue back then. It is very much an issue today. And you say, well, why did they put that phrase in there? I've had lawyers lecture me before. I'm a non-lawyer, but I've gone to them and say, hey, and they'll say, have an employment contract. They'll say, have your boss take this clause out. I say, why? And he says, here's what they'll tell you. Oh, that's just boilerplate language. We would never actually exercise that. Say, if you wouldn't, then take it out. If you find words that are put into a contract or a constitutional amendment, they're there for a reason. They have meaning. And in this case, to suggest that subject to the jurisdiction thereof has no meaning is suggesting that the people who wrote the 14th Amendment just threw extra words in for no reason. That's
Right.
ridiculous.
Especially when you consider how much they had to debate these things when you're adding certain amendments. And think about this. Let's take a couple words out of the First Amendment, shall we? What do you want to get rid of? Religion, press? Which one do we want to remove from the First Amendment? Because that completely changes it. I mean, we could do this with any amendment, but
Well,
the
imagine.
amendments themselves-
Let me interrupt for a second, Ari. I do that. I try not to do that too often. Imagine if they had not said peaceably assemble, but they had just simply said you have a constitutional right to assemble. Well, then Antifa and BLM would be off to the races. Except it doesn't say assemble. It says peaceably assemble. It is significant that that one word is in there.
That's very, very true. Switching gears to another one of the decisions today. So I have a problem with one of the decisions, but not the problem you would think. So
Okay.
with regards to what can be taught in schools and how parents can opt out, my problem is I know exactly what the schools are going to do. They're going to say, well, you can't opt out of science. And a parent's going to say, well, you wove this stuff into science. You wove this stuff into every part of the curriculum. I don't think that battle's over with regard to critical race theory and hypersexualized education.
They will try to do that, Ari, and I agree with you. Because, for example, they could weave into science something that's directly contradictory to your religious beliefs and mine. If they decide to do that, then parents have a right to object and say, I'm opting my kid out. And I want people to pay attention to why the Montgomery County Public Schools in Maryland, where this case came from, why they decided to have no opt out. Because on every other program they've had, parents have had a right to opt out. You say, why did they change it on this one? And initially they didn't. Initially they allowed everybody an opt out. Do you know what the opt out number was? About 80% of parents said, my kid is not going in that class. Now, you would think a sensible school board would have said, if 80% of our parents are opting out, I guess the other 20% either don't care or we're ignoring the issue. But if 80% are opting out, it suggests there's something incredibly toxic about that curriculum. And as a sensible school district would say, if 80% of the parents are opting out, the reason they didn't want to give them an opt-out was they had all these classes for all these kids, and almost all the kids and parents were opting out, saying, my kid's not going to be in that class. Well, would it be reasonable for a school district to say, in that case, that 80% of parents object to a particular curriculum, let's force them and their kids to be in it? That's outrageous.
And that's exactly the public school thinking these days is there are kids, not your
They own your kids.
Exactly. Lars Larson, you can catch a show every single weekday from 12 to 3 right here on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Lars, have a wonderful weekend, my friend.
And you have a wonderful weekend as well, Ari.
Lots more to discuss as the show continues, including our good news giveaway, our good news headlines, your last chance to win a $50 Daniels Broiler gift card and tickets to the King County Fair. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI.
It is time to feel good as we wrap up another amazing episode of the Ari Hoffman Show right here on Talk Radio 570 KVI. And before we get to our good news giveaway, got a good news story that Mike found today. Michael Bay is working on a new Transformers movie. I remember when I took a tour of the Paramount backlot, they had streets named after famous people in Hollywood. And I remember I saw Michael Bay, and I'm like, why is Michael Bay up there? And they said, do you have any idea how much money he made for the studio from the Transformers movies and everything else he did? I go, that's an excellent, excellent point. The question is, would you want Michael Bay directing the next Transformers movie? So I go to my expert in-house, Big Mike. Mike, would you want him doing that? I mean, The Last Night wasn't so good. They've kind of all been downhill since the first one, right?
Yeah, I in fact, hot take, I haven't even seen that Last Night movie. Because that's where I stopped. It was awful. I'm like, I can't anymore.
Yeah.
However, enough time has passed. There have been movies that have been good.
Mm-hmm.
Like I like that Bumblebee movie.
Sure.
I like that Rise of the Beast movie.
Yep.
Fine. And I really enjoyed the Transformers 1. But the thing that this is an example of giving the audience what they say that they want, but they don't show up for it.
Yeah.
The returns financially have been declining since, and that Transformers 1 did not do very well at all. It's considered a bomb, a box office failure. So maybe enough time has passed and you go back to formula. And you give us a movie like that one that we had in 2007.
Mm-hmm.
You give us some Bayhem. You give us some emphasis on the military and maybe some crude humor. And maybe folks will show up again. And maybe the foreign markets will show up again, too, because I don't think they care about the character stuff as much as folks like me do. Now, is that something that I want for my personal sensibilities? No. However, as a fan that has reluctantly seen the value of, as you said, the financial influx for Paramount and Hasbro and everyone involved, reinvigorated the Transformers brand.
Sure.
You could say nobody cared about Transformers before 2007. Totally reinvigorated the brand and the franchise. So maybe enough time has passed. Maybe he's got one in him.
Maybe he's doing that G.I. Joe Transformers crossover, which we were promised at the end of that other movie, The Rise of the Beasts.
That's happening also.
Mm-hmm.
That is apparently going to be written by Josh Cooley, the guy who directed Transformers 1. So apparently, if you go all the way to the bottom of that article, there's like 5 different projects that they're talking about. We'll see what actually happens, but on its face right now, here today, I could live with that. Let him have a shot. Try something, because what they have been doing for the last 5 years, longer, hasn't been working.
Right.
You got to do something.
Maybe if it's like bringing Russell Wilson back to the Seahawks,
There
which
you
I
go.
saw those rumors about this week.
Criminally, we have 2 quarterbacks. We don't need the guy anymore.
Got me, man.
I'm ready for the Sam Darnold era. It's fine. It's fine. I mean, again, if old man Russ wants to come back and do like a victory lap so that he can like retire and go to the Ring of Honor or something, I'm fine with that, but
Sure.
that's years from now,
I
not
agree
today.
with you.
Not
I
today.
completely agree with you. Before I forget, your chance to win fantabulous prizes today. We are giving away a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card. Check out danielsbroiler.com to reserve a table, place your takeout, delivery order, and more. We're also giving away a copy of 7 Steps to a Successful Retirement by Brian Evans of Madrona Financial and a bonus of the Little Red Book of Retirement. Visit madronafinancial.com for more information and discover how you can create a rooted wealth plan today. Last but certainly not least, we're giving away 4 tickets to the King County Fair. Grab your boots, get your tickets now for the King County Fair. All you have to do in order to win these fantabulous prizes is be caller number 10 at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Caller number 10 will win a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card, a copy of 7 Steps to a Successful Retirement, a bonus of the Little Red Book of Retirement by Brian Evans of Madrona Financial and CPAs, and 4 tickets to the King County Fair. Phone lines are open now. Give Mike a call for your chance to win at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Well, that's going to do it for us this week, my friends, but fear not, we'll be back on Monday with more insane stories, more exciting guests, and, of course, more giveaways. You've been listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI.